So, are you one of those curious souls, like me, that wonder how much water trees drink per day? Whether planets can float on water? And why guinea pigs popcorn? Yeah, I know it's weird, but I'm a curious kind of guy. Get ready to find the answers to these and many other burning questions. Cats don't actually know how to use a litter box. Their instinct helps them. Their ancestors did it to hide their scent from more dominant cats and other predators. The word muscle comes from the Latin little mouse. People in ancient Rome thought some muscles, for example a flexed bicep, had a mouse-like shape. Your body gives off a tiny amount of light. In other words, you're glowing, but nobody can see it with the unaided eye. Babies only make crying sounds, but shed no tears until they're at least several weeks old. Owls don't have eyeballs. Really? Yeah. Their eyes are shaped more like tubes and held in place by special bones. On the bright side, owls can turn their necks 270 degrees in both directions, plus 90 degrees up and down. And they don't even need to move their shoulders at that. Nerves are connected throughout your body. They carry information from the brain to different organs and back at breakneck speed, up to 260 miles per hour. The human heart beats on average more than 3 billion times during its lifespan. Man, if I had a nickel for every time… Your nose has at least 400 different scent receptors. That's why most people can detect around 1 trillion different smells. That's 3 to 4 times as many as the number of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. An apple is almost 20% air. That's why it floats when placed in the water. Ooh, anyone for some apple bobbing? Pineapples are super slow growers. If you plant the top of a pineapple, you'll have to wait for 2 or 2.5 years for it to start blooming. American buffalo herds often make decisions by voting. For example, when they choose where to travel, animals would stand up one by one, look in a particular direction, and then lie down again. In most cases, the herd then moves in the direction that got the most looks. Oh, by the way, Roger Miller says you can't roller skate in a buffalo herd. At first sight, the fluffy Rox hyrax doesn't look somewhat impressive. The animal lives in some parts of Africa and the Middle East, but this 10-pound creature is one of the closest relatives of the 10,000-pound elephant. Your brain tends to change memories with time. That's why you're likely to have at least one false piece of memory, or a whole lot more in my case. The University of Oxford is older than the Aztec Empire. The educational institution was established in 1096. The Aztec Empire was founded 332 years later in 1428. But who's counting? Your blood makes up 7 to 8% of your total body mass. People are more honest when they're tired. That's why most confessions are made during late-night conversations. At a particular temperature and pressure, frozen liquid can start to boil, and boiling liquid will freeze. This phenomenon is called a triple point. For water, it's a bit more than 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 611 pascals of pressure. Your body loses from 30,000 to 40,000 skin cells every hour. Within a day, you shed almost 1 million skin cells. Look behind you, there's a big pile of you on the floor. A big oak tree can drink 100 gallons of water per day, and a giant sequoia usually consumes 500 gallons in one day. Horses use facial expressions to communicate their feelings. These expressions are rather similar to those people make. For example, horses raise inner eyebrows to show sadness, fear, and surprise. They also pull back lip corners in submission or greeting. Probably where the expression, "Hey, why the long face?" comes from. Or not. Marge Simpson's hairstyle is super tall not without reason. She uses it to hide her rabbit ears. Or at least it was supposed to be this way. The creators were going to make the big reveal in the last episode of the first season, but then they decided the cartoon had gotten too realistic and left Marge with just an unusual hairstyle. Placebo sleep is when you make your brain believe you've slept well. If you're convincing enough, it can boost your brain performance. A moose's antlers are so sensitive, they can feel a fly landing on them. The human brain is shrinking. Over the last 10,000 years, its mass has become one tennis ball smaller. Luckily, it hasn't influenced how smart people are. Explains why I stink at tennis, too. An adult's body consists of 7 billion atoms. That's 7 and 27 zeros. 65% of them are hydrogen atoms, 24% oxygen, and 10% carbon. The remaining 1% is other elements, like copper, zirconium, lead, and so on. Grizzly bears have such a strong bite that they can crush a bowling ball. That's why you almost never see grizzly bears bowling. One bamboo species holds the world record for being the fastest growing plant on Earth. It grows 35 inches per day. Scientists discovered 14 new species of dancing frogs in 2014, raising the total number to 24. Maybe they could do a revival of a chorus line. The largest city in the world is Tokyo. It has a population of 38.5 million people. That's 4.5 times more than the population of Switzerland and more than twice bigger than the population of the Netherlands. Your earlobes become longer as you age because of gravity. It causes them to stretch, sag, and look as if they're growing. Trained pigeons can distinguish between Pablo Picasso's and Claude Monet's paintings. And if they sit on a stool while they paint, well, you can kind of guess their nicknames. Bubbles can help you keep the water in your bath warmer for longer. They serve as a kind of insulation and reduce heat loss. Some penguins propose to females by giving them a perfect, in their opinion, pebble. Humans use a different kind of pebble. Foreign accent syndrome is a real, although extremely rare, condition. It can be caused by a brain injury. People who have this condition start speaking in their native language with a foreign accent. Archaeologists have discovered some evidence that proves there were takeout restaurants in Pompeii. If you couldn't escape the volcano's eruption in time, then you were eating in. When you try to remember something in the past, you don't recall the original event. You actually remember the last time you thought of it. The chevrotain, also known as mouse deer, is a tiny animal that looks like a miniature deer with fangs. When you sleep, your brain is getting cleaned. Special fluid flushes through it and washes away dangerous toxins and harmful proteins that have built up there during the day. Saturn could float in water because the planet is a gas giant and is less dense than water. Your brain accounts for 2% of your body weight. At the same time, it uses up to 20% of all the oxygen and calories your body consumes. Because of warmer weather, more turtles are born female than male. Chihuahuas have the biggest brain in the dog world, relative to their body size, of course. The ampersand symbol was formed from two letters, E and T. ET is the Latin word for "and". Spider silk is 5 times as strong as steel of the same weight. Researchers claim that a spider silk rope 2 inches thick could stop a flying Boeing 747. Your finger can feel objects as tiny as your hair width. In other words, if your finger was the size of our planet, you'd be able to tell the difference between cars and houses. Up to 85% of all the oxygen on Earth is produced in the world's oceans by tiny creatures called phytoplankton. They are so small it's hard to see them without a microscope. Living near the surface, they convert sunlight into energy. The byproduct of this process is oxygen. One person in 10,000 has a condition called situs inversus. That's when an internal organ is reversed or mirrored from its usual position. In most cases, it's a complete right-to-left reversal of all abdominal organs. The tardigrade, also known as the water bear, is a microscopic creature that's famous for its survival skills. It can live through extreme temperatures from 300 to minus 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and the pressure that's 6 times stronger than at the ocean floor. The creature can also survive in a complete vacuum. Tardigrades sometimes spend almost 10 years without food. If a guinea pig, especially a baby, gets excited, it starts popcorning. It means that the animal begins to hop up in the air, which looks like a kernel of popcorn in a microwave. When you lose weight, your fat cells don't just disappear into thin air. They also slim down and become smaller. It works the other way around too. When you gain weight, your fat cells grow in size as well. There are more than 24 time zones in the world. It means they aren't exactly 1 hour apart from each other. Many time zones have just a 30 to 45-minute difference from their neighbors. Without your pinky finger, your hand would lose almost half of its strength. The pinky is critical for a strong grip. Graphite in pencils is a super soft mineral. It has to be mixed with a clay binder to keep its form while you're writing. But at the same time, graphite contains the same atoms as one of the hardest materials on Earth, diamonds. Your mind wanders 30% of the time while you're doing your day-to-day tasks. When you're walking or driving along a deserted highway, it might be even more, up to 70% of the time. With their teeny bodies and long tails, elephant shrews may resemble small rodents or opossums, but they're actually more closely related to real elephants than shrews. Sign language is an official language in 41 countries. There are up to 300 sign languages, including International Sign Language. Acacia trees, growing all over the African savanna, have a natural security system. When an animal starts to gobble up acacia leaves, the tree starts to produce more tannin, to the levels that are toxic to animals. Then the tree emits ethylene gas. This cloud reaches other trees and warns them about the danger so they can begin to produce their own tannin. Blue jays mimic hawks, especially the red-shouldered hawk, to fool other birds into believing there's danger nearby. Blue jays also rub ants against their feathers before gobbling them up to get rid of the insect's acid. Black holes aren't really black. The smallest of them emit visible light. With time, though, it drains them of their energy and mass. It took Erno Rubik, the creator of the famous 3D puzzle, 1 month to solve it. But in June 2018, the record time was a mere 4.22 seconds. Almost 3% of people have an inborn inability to recognize the voices of people they know. This phenomenon is called phoneagnosia. Percy Spencer invented the first microwave oven in 1945. The engineer received no royalties for his invention, just a $2 payment his company gave to all its inventors. It's approximately the same as $30 today. What cheapskates! There are more than 60,000 tree species that science knows about on our planet. More than half of them only exist in one country. Not only can starfish regenerate a lost limb can regenerate the entire starfish as well. A new meaning to the phrase, out on a limb. The slow loris, a small creature that looks like a monkey, is the only venomous primate known to people. These animals lick toxin-producing glands under their inner arms and then bite enemies. Tim Storms, an American singer and composer, got to the Guinness World Records twice, for the widest vocal range and for the lowest note produced by a human. This note was so low that only elephants could hear it. Attaboy, Tim! People have way fewer genes than tomatoes and about the same number as worms. Scientists suspect that the number of genes may have nothing to do with the complexity of something. Now, even though the giraffe's neck is usually 6 feet in length, It still has the same number of neck bones as humans. Scientists predict that our planet's ozone layer will completely restore itself within the next 50 years. Firefighters usually extinguish flames with wet water. It's water mixed with special wetting agents. These are chemicals that help water soak into objects and spread everywhere more easily. Each tree in Melbourne was given a unique ID number so that residents could email the council if something wrong happened to it. But people started to send love letters to trees instead. Your tongue has its own unique print, just like your fingers. It's also equipped with 10,000 taste buds that get replaced every 2 weeks or so. NASA has managed to translate radio waves created by planets' atmospheres into audible sounds. That's how astronomers have found out that Neptune sounds like ocean waves, Jupiter like being underwater, and Saturn resembles background music to a horror movie. When you cough, the air is forced out of your lungs along with thousands of tiny saliva droplets. A single cough expels more than 3,000 droplets. They fly out of your mouth at a speed of 50 miles per hour. So please, cover your mouth. Hearing is your fastest sense. Your brain needs just 0.05 seconds to recognize a sound. It's 10 times faster than you blink. Ravens can learn to talk better than parrots. They also imitate other sounds and noises, including animal calls or car engines. Some rainbows appear at night. It's a rather rare phenomenon called a moonbow. A moonbow is produced by moonlight rather than direct sunlight. That's why the thing appears to be white. Wearing orange for a job interview is a bad idea. 25% of hiring managers associate this color with a lack of professionalism. They prefer candidates dressed in blue. Or maybe that just indicates a lack of open-mindedness of the hiring managers. Not to get lost in Central Park in New York, pay attention to lampposts. Each of them has a set of 4 numbers. The first 2 inform you about the nearest street. The remaining show whether you're closer to the park's west or east side. Odd numbers are for the west, and even signal the east. Scientists analyzed some fossils and figured out that dinosaurs used to quack like modern ducks or make sounds similar to pigeons or ostriches. Your stomach and esophagus are covered with nerve cells. There are almost 100 million of them. That's more than there are in a cat's entire head. Scientists call these cells the second brain because they determine your mood and emotions. Most animals stay away from power lines because they give off flashes of ultraviolet light. Plus, around 35 animal species are sensitive to UV radiation. Talking about all the mammals in the world, only humans and apes fail to see ultraviolet rays. The Marmite Company, which produces spreads made from yeast extract, created special travel-sized jars. It happened because Marmite became one of the most confiscated things when people were leaving the UK through airports. Before trees overtook the land, some 360 million years ago, our planet was covered with huge mushrooms. They grew 24 feet tall and several feet wide. Boy, I'd love to see the pizza those could fit on. When you learn something new, your brain changes its structure. New connections between neurons appear. It helps you link information faster. The feeling it's not the first time you experience some event in real life is called déjà vu. But if you feel that you've already experienced something in a dream, it's déjà rêvé. Your brain is likely to be more creative when you're tired. Carrots used to be purple in the past, with some yellow ones among them. But then people figured out that yellow carrots tasted better. Purple ones were a bit on the bitter side. Farmers started to experiment, and in the 16th century, they were already growing bright orange carrots you munch on today. Hopefully not the same ones. Fidgeting burns calories. If you spend all day fidgeting, you can burn as much as 350 calories. So get used to tapping your fingers and bouncing your leg to stay fit. In the past, men's dress shirt collars were detachable. It helped people save money on laundry costs. Ancient Egyptian necklace, dating back 5,000 years, was made from iron meteorites. They arrived from space and were turned into the world's oldest iron artifact we know about. Squirrels plant millions of trees every year after they forgot where they've hidden their acorns and nuts. A human hair, which is one of the narrowest visible things in the world, is more than 1 million atoms across. Hawaiian pizza with ham and pineapples is actually Canadian. It was invented in Toronto in 1962 by a Canadian chef. He called it Hawaiian after the brand of canned pineapple he used. Hey, I know some mushrooms that might be good with that. Almost 2.5 billion people use Facebook on a regular basis. That's nearly as many as the combined population of India and China. Your decisions are more rational and your reasoning is sharper when you think in a foreign language. Leap Day, which is February 29th, is crucial for our calendar. Earth doesn't orbit the Sun in exactly 365 days. It's actually 365.256 days. And February 29th compensates for the planet's not-so-perfect orbit. As medical technologies improve, people start to believe in medicine more. That's why the placebo effect is getting more and more powerful. All the ants in the world weigh more than the entire human population of the planet. So far, they haven't weighed all the uncles of the world. The size of prop dollar bills used in movies has to be either 75% smaller or 150% bigger than the actual bill size. The image must be printed on just one side, and only one color of ink can be used. Your hair contains a tiny amount of gold. There are up to 14 elements in each strand of your hair, including this precious metal. The world's longest mountain range on Earth is underwater. The Mid-Atlantic Ocean Ridge in the Atlantic Ocean is around 26,000 miles long. That's as long as 5 Great Walls of China placed one after another. Square watermelons appeared in Japan at the end of the 1970s. They were supposed to fit better inside small fridges. But to stay this unusual shape, square watermelons have to be picked before they're ripe. Unfortunately, it makes them inedible. Elephants can move pretty fast, but they can't jump. Not only because it's hard to do when you weigh 5 tons or more, elephants also have relatively weak lower leg muscles and rather inflexible ankles. But you should see them pack a trunk.